Seth Kaplan is a commercial aviation expert. He is also managing partner of Airline Weekly. Seth, what kind of security procedures would have been performed on this particular plane in addition to the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, we would have gotten a sweep in Paris, but nothing necessarily all that extensive. Nothing that might have detected, if there was a device brought aboard the plane, whether it was in Eritrea or Tunisia or Cairo and hidden somewhere, that's not something that's necessarily going to be detected. What has changed, for example, since Lockerbie, which your last guest, Hardin, mentioned. In that case, you had a bomb that was, by all appearances, placed aboard in Malta, changed planes in Frankfurt, and wasn't caught during screening. If you had a bag changing planes, that would be different nowadays, probably would be caught, but that would be unlikely to happen here because you wouldn't have bags connecting onto this flight, just the way the tickets would have been sold. It's out and back from Cairo in this case, and so the best guess, and that's really all it is at this point, Craig, would be that it was brought aboard somewhere, whether it was somewhere else and not caught.
You mentioned Eritrea and Tunisia, and that's important to this conversation because that is, of course, where this plane had spent time in the 48 hours prior to the flight from here at Charles de Gaulle to Cairo. And we know that part of the world has been, over the past few years, a hotbed for terrorism. There have been a number of concerns expressed about airline security measures at airports in that part of the world specifically. If there was some sort of breach here, Seth, at Charles de Gaulle, if there was a breach here, what would that then mean for international airport security? What would that mean going forward?
Oh, the impact, Craig, would be huge. Again, if you're just sort of trying to say, well, what's the best guess here? The reason the theory that it was put aboard somewhere else is somewhat credible is that, look, although you can construct a case about, why they might target EgyptAir, if you could penetrate security at Paris Charles de Gaulle, EgyptAir probably wouldn't be the first target. There are some other higher profile targets. I mean, think about transatlantic flights on U.S. carriers, for example. And so that's why at this early stage, your mind kind of goes to the thought that it might have been brought aboard somewhere else. But yeah, if they penetrated the security there at Paris, we heard Pete Williams talking about it, better screening of airport workers and so forth. These would be all things that would be back front. But Craig, very important to recognize, by the way, that for all this talk about airport security, when you think about plots that have succeeded and failed over the past decade and a half, beginning with 9/11, almost always it kind of has more to do with intelligence than it does with airport security. 9/11, for all that we did in response to 9/11 at the airports, that was primarily an intelligence failure. Those box cutters that got through, those were legal on that day. It wasn't really a failure at the security checkpoint. It was a failure of, we had people who were interested in learning how to fly planes but not land them. Conversely, the transatlantic plot out of London a decade ago that resulted in the liquid bans and later restrictions, in that case, intelligence worked. It was nothing that was caught at Heathrow. It was, infiltrating those cells. And so it's always a combination of, yes, tighter airport security, but on the other hand, most recently Brussels, that too, a failure more than anything by all appearances of just agencies not doing perhaps their best in terms of sharing information.
Seth Kaplan, we will have to leave it there, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you, Craig.